Welcome to Pro Bono, sponsored by Cahoon Legal. I'm your host, Amber Cahoon. I'm an attorney in North Texas. New podcasts are available monthly, and you can subscribe on most podcast platforms and find us on social media. Follow at Pro Bono Show. Remember, this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered legal advice. It is not intended to replace professional attorney legal advice. This information is catered towards Texans with a focus on Texas law. What we have for you today, we're going to be talking about real estate matters. First, a big case has actually kind of come out. It is Burnett versus the National Association of Realtors. We're going to talk about that, and then actually the real estate commission litigation claims, and then the aftermath of this settlement. Once we've covered that, we're going to talk briefly about flat fee real estate sale, and then most common reasons for real estate litigation, and then new home construction issues. So there is a case that was brought, I believe, in the federal court in Missouri. It is Burnett versus the National Association of Realtors. And what has happened is that a settlement was reached earlier this year, and it was between a group of the home sellers. Basically, how realtors are paid the commission on the sale of the homes. If you've ever sold a home in Texas or anywhere else, it's very common to be told by a realtor that you're talking to that it's generally about 6%. So that's split between the listing or seller's agent and the buyer's agent. Well, that actually has always been negotiable, but due to very sophisticated practices by the National Association of Realtors, supposedly, or what they're alleged, is that it became a antitrust issue because they were having home buyers agree to these terms, because if they didn't, then they would suffer not getting any buyers to come and view their home as a seller. Predominantly sellers would be paying these at closing. There would be realtors that wouldn't show the homes. So all these variety of reasons that it really became almost like a non-negotiable amount of commission. And so that was what the lawsuit premises essentially were about. Not to get really too specific about the lawsuit, which if you find interesting, you can definitely look that up and you can find more details about it. But as a result, they've come to this settlement, and it is a proposed settlement of $418 million in damages. And it eliminates the rules on commission. And so, kind of leading into our other topics, I wanted to talk about that case. And then, because we have the settlement, we actually, as a home buyer or seller, if you have sold a home in a variety of metropolitan areas that are covered under this lawsuit, you might be entitled to money back. And so I've actually looked up the information. I have, with my husband, we have bought and sold. We're in our fourth house now. We've also had land that we've bought and sold. So we've done it many times. I actually, in my last time we sold our house, we did use a Keller Williams realtor. She's great, but they actually were involved in the settlement. So Keller Williams Realty, as well as realtor companies. And so depending on what areas you were in, some of the dates go back all the way to 2014. So it's really, if you've bought and sold real estate in the country, I would recommend you going to the website, which we'll provide, below, and you can go and see if you would also be a part of this settlement option. The website right now is www.realestateCommissionLitigation.com. That's where you can start to get information, and you can actually file a claim. So I want to share that with you. The claim date, I believe you have until only May 9th. So the deadline is actually running out. This litigation information came out a couple months ago. This is the first time we're talking about it because I'm talking about real estate this month. but I would definitely look into it if you have bought or sold a home in the last 10 years almost, because you might be eligible to be a part of that and get some money back. The other aspect is that now that the rules on commissions have been banned or they are no longer in effect, what does that mean for you now if you're buying or selling a home? So the actual settlement will go into effect in July, and the proposed rules will, be ended at that point. So in July 2024, sellers will no longer have to spell out what the commission structure is for the buyer's agent. And so the extent that you'll have more negotiating power, they believe that will happen, and it will provide more competition and hopefully lower costs. Currently, if you have a home price around $400,000, which is the national average, you're looking at anywhere from $20,000 to $24,000 in real estate commissions that you would be paying out. This can be a great, amount of savings that you might experience in future home sales, because of this new, basically, elimination of that rule and the settlement. What this means for agents, I have talked to a number of agents. They're figuring it out. So if you are buying and selling a home currently, I would really talk to them, find out what they have plans on what they're doing with the commission, how they're going to behave, because even though it starts in July, they already are having to make plans now, to figure out how they're going to move forward, and so they can tell their realtors how to make sure that they're doing it properly, and so they're not going to violate any of the rules or the new ban on putting commissions out there. So another thing right now, mortgage rates tend to be higher, and so I know the real estate market across the country has slowed down. Dallas-Fort Worth area where I'm located at still is pretty robust. We have a lot of new homes going in, people moving in from other states. So we fortunately usually are able to ride out a lot of these kind of downturn in our real estate, markets, but it is slowed down. I would make sure that if you've used a realtor in the past, talking to them about this commission, what does that look like for you, how much money that's going to save you, who's going to pay it, because like I said, most of the time in the past, it was put on the closing settlement statement for the seller, and that is not always necessarily going to be the case in the future. So when you're looking at buying and selling and you want to understand the cost for you, you really need to understand where those commissions are going to be paid and who's going to pay them and how much you're going to be paying for them. Also, since the deadline is in July, we still are about 2 months out, you might want to consider whether you want to wait to list your home or put it on the market until after the rule has gone into effect, or if it is a good time now for you and what that would look like as far as your costs, or if there's benefits to doing now or waiting for that new deadline. Next, I want to talk about flat fee real estate sales. This is actually from a personal experience. Like I said, my husband and I have bought and sold a number of properties and homes in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and at least on 2 of those occasions, we have used what's called a flat fee real estate agent. There's, I think, probably a lot of them out there, and I would always make sure, no matter who you're going with, if it's just a regular realtor or this type of thing, that you really investigate and get, make sure they're reputable. But how ours worked was we paid a low flat fee. It was a couple $100, maybe $500. I can't quite remember. It's been a number of years since we've done it. And they put our home on the MLS. We basically told them what to put. We staged our house. We had someone show the house for us. I actually know someone personally that is a realtor, and so we worked out a deal where they would show our home for us, and we would just pay a smaller commission. So there are instances where stuff like that can, be a good choice. There's also, sale by owner, so these choices have always kind of been there, at least in the last 10, 15 years. But most people don't realize that they're out there. And so in all cases, I would always encourage consumers to look at the options that you have and decide which is the best one for you. Investigate it, make sure you're going with a reputable either person or company. You check referrals, you check reviews, and go with your gut. If there's ever a red flag or something that doesn't make you feel right, you don't need to move forward. You need to really feel good about that decision because it is a very expensive one, and you don't want to be out money that you can't get back later. Another thing that I always want to bring up and is a huge part in real estate is fraud. So if you're dealing with a title company, they're always talking about that. They'll send you an email and they're like, don't just give out your wire information. You need to be really clear. Unfortunately, there have been many instances where people have been told that they're about to get the wire instructions. They get it, they send the wire, and then they get a call from the title company. They're saying, we're emailing it to you now. And they're like, wait, I already sent it. You're out that money. It's fraud. So anytime that you are sending, wiring, Zelle, whatever, a substantial amount of money, or any amount of money really, you always want to make sure and double check. And waiting and pausing and double checking, no matter if it costs you 30 minutes, an hour, whatever, in the long run, to make sure that is done properly and to the proper title company or person, is going to be beneficial in the long run and not get you into a mess where you're having to figure out how to get your money back or contacting all the police or whoever about potential fraud or true instances of fraud. Next, I want to talk about the most common reasons for real estate litigation. The biggest reason why potential clients may call me or other real estate attorneys regarding litigation is because they have sold their home and maybe there was undisclosed damages to the home that were not on the seller's disclosure document. Maybe it's stuff that you actually weren't aware of, or possibly maybe you were and it wasn't disclosed properly. That is a big issue. It is very costly litigation. It can be sometimes very hard to prove, and it can take years. So you're in a home, maybe you've bought a home, and I had one client that they bought a very expensive home, and they found that there had been water damage in a substantial part of the home, numerous areas of the home. And we actually had quite a bit of evidence, direct evidence that we had found the previous owner had mistakenly left there. And so we were in a very different situation. We were in a better position than most homeowners are, that we actually had proof that they had purposely got painters to come and paint over water marks and those type of things. But the litigation we were looking at was going to be costing, tens of thousands up to $100,000 over the course of 3 to 4 years. And so it can be a very costly venture to go into litigation for these type of matters. And the best practice is when you're buying a home is to get an inspector. Now, that is not a guarantee that there won't be issues, but you are more likely to find the issues if you have an inspector. You usually cannot sue an inspector for more than what you actually paid. They usually have a clause in their agreement that's like, if they miss something, then the most that they'll be liable is for the amount that you've actually paid them, so a couple $100. Getting an inspector can get an inspection report so you'll know issues that you potentially are facing when you buy the property, and so that you know if you need to get further investigation. So they're a generalist, an inspector is, and so if there's AC issues, you need to call out an AC expert or a repairman to make sure what actually is needing to be done, or electrician. That's a good first step. If you don't get an inspection, that sometimes can be a barrier to a claim that you might have because you hadn't done the due diligence on your part as the buyer to make sure that the house didn't have any issues. The whole buyer beware. So you really have to be active and make sure that what you're purchasing is in good working order, if you will. So that is a big area that is very costly. Another area that is common for real estate disputes are boundary lines. So, where your property lines are, if there's been an encroachment, the survey on your land, if it wasn't done properly or it's old, especially for land that has been around a long time, maybe it's been in your family a long time, it hasn't been maybe a current survey, those type of things can cause some boundary disputes, which then lead to possible litigation. Another big one is easements. That's where you have a shared space. One person actually owns it, but then they have an easement is basically the right to use it for certain, activity. So if it's a shared driveway, you can exit and entrance into the property through that. And most everyone has an easement on their property, utility easement, because if the utility companies have to come to check the water meters or whatever, that allows them to come onto your property. That's a very common one. Those are usually disputed, but that just gives you an idea of what that is meaning. But a lot of times out in more rural areas, you might actually have property that's landlocked, and there's no access to roads. So you actually have to have an easement over another person's property to get out onto the major roads from your property. Another thing would be zoning or land use disputes. This also involves if it's city ordinances or if you have even HOA. So you have zoning, which is more city, but then you have covenants and restrictions within HOAs, so homeowner associations, that can have property uses, and litigation can arise out of those. And just in general, real estate, they're all done on contract. You cannot have a real estate deal in Texas without it being written on a contract. It's not valid if it is not written down and signed by both parties. So any type of deal that there has been a breach, where someone has not fulfilled their end of their obligations, that would be a breach of contract. And that is very common in real estate deals. Another thing is fraud and misrepresentation. This somewhat goes hand in hand with the first one that I mentioned, where you have damage or seller's disclosures that don't list damage that the owner or the previous owner was actually aware of. That could be this type of issue where they've committed fraud, or maybe in the description of the home, the property, they've described it in a way that's not actually accurate, and then they find out later that it was false information or there were hidden defects that they didn't let them know. Another thing is when you get your survey, if it has lines marked for different easements or pipelines, we have a lot of oil and gas, those have areas around them that you can't do certain activities. So you're restricted in how you're using part of your land. And if those aren't marked properly and you don't know that, for instance, we had one where we had an oil and gas line that you had a 25-foot area that you could not do a permanent structure. And the homeowners wanted to build a pool. They had a quarter of an acre, and instead of having almost like 8,000 square feet or maybe 6,000 square feet in their backyard to work with, because of that, they ended up only having 4,000 square foot that they could actually work with because of that space around the gas line, that they could not do any permanent structure like a pool. In Texas and around the country, real estate is usually the largest asset that most people have. And so it's really important that when you're either buying or selling, that whether you have a realtor or a real estate agent representing you, you should always contact a real estate attorney, especially if there are provisions in that agreement that you don't understand or you want very specific language added. Realtors cannot do that. Real estate agents cannot do that. Only attorneys can do that. And if you're a first-time homeowner or home buyer, it's very important that you talk to a real estate attorney, because just understanding the process, a real estate attorney does not have a vested interest that you buy and sell a home. They're just there to help and guide you through the process, whether you buy or sell a home or not. A realtor, while they can be very ethical and there's no slight against that industry at all, but at the end of the day, they get paid when you buy or when you sell. And so if you go through the whole process and you don't end up doing that, they're out the money. An attorney, you pay them up front. They have a duty to give you the best advice based upon your situation. So it's always really important that, especially with real estate, you get an attorney so you understand the process, you understand any issues that might arise. Next, I want to talk about new home construction. This is something that I have personal experience with, as well as experience as a real estate attorney, is that when you are buying a new home, sometimes this is your first time to ever do it. They don't usually use the same type of contracts that you see, what are called in Texas tract forms. Those are propagated by the Texas government, and they are out there and very widely used. The language is, similar. It covers a lot of bases, giving you a lot of good information. The new home buyers are going off of whatever their home builder's contract is. And it may have provisions in there that you don't really understand that can be very, very costly to you. So if you are a first-time home buyer of a new construction, I would definitely reach out to a real estate attorney. There's provisions, especially during COVID, that came about. And basically, if it was taking too long for the building, because building supplies were becoming scarce, you had a contract, but they realized that they could cancel your contract and then put it back on the market at a higher rate to actually recoup the higher costs that they were having to spend. If they had that convenience clause, many home builders actually did that, and it was a big issue in the market. And there were a lot of home buyers that were very unexpectedly homeless, or not having the home that they had put down money and thought they were going to get because they didn't understand the contract that they had read. When you have a new home that's being built, you usually have about a year that you can have issues be fixed. It's usually like a warranty that the home builder gives you. They may have a process. If maybe there's cracks in the tile, or the paint job is not completely done in areas, or whatever, just a whole list, basically anything. You have that time where they will send people out to fix those issues. Now, some home builders will then actually have an even extended warranty. So I know we had a 10-year warranty after the fact on different structural issues that we had. But I would, if you're getting a new home, I would talk to them about that so you understand the process and how long you have. Because anytime you have a new home, it's new, it's beautiful, there's still things that need to get fixed. When we moved into our latest home, the glass for our master shower was getting delivered with a whole bunch of other homeowners at the same time, and the guy got in a car accident and it broke the glass. And we were set to move in, and we were told by the builder, like, we can't get glass out to you for another 3 weeks. So we said, okay, we closed, we got the house, and it was about a month later or so before we got the glass installed in our shower, in our master bathroom. These are some of the things that can happen. And that doesn't mean that they have breached their contract to you. Very common for new home builders to have language in there that protects them, and so they're not going to be in breach because of these little things. Now, if it's major, definitely reach out to a real estate attorney to make sure if it falls within that, or if it's extraordinary, and maybe there is a breach. I had someone contact me. She had a beautiful new home built, but it was kind of the same thing. They were about to close, and there were a number of issues. But after speaking to this person, none of the issues were major. They were just little, maybe cosmetic things, and she was very unhappy. And while I understood that, I informed her that you will not be successful going to a jury and telling them that you wanted to cancel your $500,000 or $600,000 home. There was nothing major that did not allow them to enter and live in the home. She was upset. She did not like that answer. And sometimes attorneys, we have to give those hard answers that you may not like to hear, but that's the truth of the matter. And it's better to find out, at this time when you're maybe spending a couple $100s to find out the answer rather than later, and it might be thousands of dollars. So it's something, if you have never had new home construction, I would really consult with a real estate attorney so you understand that process. So you're not blindsided at the end, especially when you're ready to close and there's still these issues and you don't know whether it's something that you should move forward, because a lot of people fear that if they move forward and they close, then their leverage is gone and it's like they can't get the builder to come back out and fix those issues. So there are protections within the Texas Property Code that does protect you for that. And so it's really important that you find out what all that is. And that's the best way, is to contact a real estate attorney. Now I'd like to stop and talk about a product that we use in our office to help us streamline our processes for our internal activities as well as for our clients or onboarding of our clients, and that is Zapier, Zapier.com. It is a connectivity app, I would say. So it's been around for a while, and we love it because we are all virtual. We use a lot of technology programs, and because of Zapier, we can actually connect them. So for instance, I think I've talked about Dubsado in the past before. So when a client contacts us to schedule an appointment, that is done on Acuity scheduling, and anytime they schedule an appointment, it automatically sends a notification through Dubsado. It sets them up. It sends an email. It creates a folder in my email box with their name. It creates a folder on our cloud server with their name, and then a copy of the intake that they've filled out. So in one action, 5 or 6 things get handled, all because we have Zaps. That's what they're called, Zaps, set up. And it is just, for us, it has just been such a great program that has saved so much time, and it just creates so much seamless automation. And so if you have a small business and you are looking to kind of connect many of the programs that you're using, I highly recommend looking at Zapier.com, see how they can maybe help you in your business, because it's awesome. We are very grateful for it because it makes our life so much easier. And I want to talk about a little personal note. On the 28th of April, which was the other day, my puppy has turned 1 year old. We have a yellow lab, and his name is Waffles, and he is a very sweet boy. This is our third dog that we have 3 dogs, and I fell in love with him and his little brothers and sisters over, I guess, last June on Facebook. Someone posted a little video of them, and I told my family, I was like, I really want to go and see him. And so we got a puppy, and he loves the water. We have a pool. He loves getting in there, and now that it's been warming up and going outside more in my garden, he's hopping around in the pool. Hopefully, now that he's a little bigger, when we get in the pool, he'll actually swim out to us. When he was younger, he got a little scared, but he's bigger now. I think he should be good. And then we have 2 other dogs. So we have Cupcake, who is a small little rat terrier that is brown and black, and she is very sweet, but she's our old lady. She has been around since 2013 when I entered law school. She was a perfect dog at that time. She had a lot of energy, that I would play with her outside for like 15 minutes, and then she would come in and she would just curl up in her bed for hours while I was studying, and it was perfect. And then I think in around 2018, we got our second dog, and that is Oreo. He's a black and white. We think a maybe English retriever. He's beautiful, sweet boy. He really should be named Scooby-Doo because he is petrified of most things. A number of years ago when we were having storms just nonstop, I think it was like 2019 or something, he really became scared of going outside without someone with him because every time we would put him outside, it would be like raining and thundering and lightning. And so he became very scared. So even to this day, if we want to get him to go outside to use the bathroom, one of us has to walk outside with him. It can be a little annoying, but he is very sweet. Both Cupcake and Oreo, I think their birthday is in July. And so, like I said, Cupcake's 11 years old and Oreo is maybe 6 or almost 7 years old now. So those are our dogs. If you are a client of mine and you call me, most likely you will hear one of them or two of them. Fortunately, Waffles is somewhat our favorite because he does not bark. He only barks at the other dogs in the house when they're playing. He does not bark at people walking by or anything like that. The other two dogs do that, so that sometimes drives me nuts. But Waffles will actually sit with his little head on the windowsill looking outside. He's very curious, but he is wonderful in the fact that he does not bark. That is a little bit about me personally. I know a lot of people like dogs. I will see if we can put a photo of my dogs up there so you can see they are absolutely precious and they're very sweet. I hope you have enjoyed this podcast. That's all we have today for Pro Bono. Thank you for listening, and I hope you've learned more about legal topics that can help you in your daily life. Please share with your friends and family and send any questions you have that you want me to cover in future episodes. Next month, we'll be covering contract law. Have a great day.